Thank you, Dustin, Deborah. So nice to hear you guys this morning. Thank you for doing that. As you know, it's the 5th Sunday of the month, so we give the musicians the week off, and Dustin and Deborah stepped in. We're glad that you guys did that. So we're going through the book of James, sort of our practical guide for everyday life. As we talked about before, in the book of James, what James did was he took the wisdom of Proverbs and he mixed it together with the Sermon on the Mount to create this new book, kind of how to just do everyday Christian life. So let's take a look at that. How about honesty and integrity? Do we think we have any problems with honesty and integrity? What about as Christians? Do we have problems with honesty and integrity sometimes, even as Christians? I mean, aren't we supposed to be honest? Isn't that like one of the top 10 commandments or something? Yeah. Shouldn't we have integrity? What do you think integrity is? What is integrity? What do you think it is? Being what you say you are. Anyone else? What? Being real? Anybody else? What do you think integrity is? You do what? Doing the right thing even if no one's watching you. That's an awful strict standard. I don't know. I like to think of integrity as being the same inside and out. That whatever is inside of you is what shows on the outside. Now, I was arguing with one of my fellow doctrinal students about that. He goes, well, then for you, integrity, if somebody's like a really bad guy, as long as they act like a really bad guy, they have integrity. And I'm like, yeah, they're being who they really are. So they didn't like that one. He wanted it up to clean it up. Anyway, honesty and integrity. Oh, there he is, Peter Popoff. I've been writing about him a little bit. Anybody know his background and his story? He got busted about a decade ago by James Randi. Anybody know James Randi? Known as the Amazing Randi. He's a famous magician, but he's also the founder of the James Randi Foundation. He's a big-time skeptic, and he thinks that there are a lot of people out there ripping other people off. He has an ongoing offer. He's passed away, but his foundation continues. He has an ongoing offer of $1 million for anybody who can actually produce any psychic phenomenon under scientific testing conditions. And he has tested literally hundreds of psychics, and not one of them has ever claimed the $1 million. He's always like, this is just a magic trick. Anyway, one day James Randi went to Peter Popoff, who had made himself rich off of his particular talent of being able to stand in front of an audience, just like I'm doing, and they'll go, yes, I'm seeing someone. The name is Jeff, and Jeff, you live in Irvine, yeah? And this is the issue that you have. And supposedly he was hearing the voice of God and calling this out, and it was really impressing people, and he was making a lot of money off doing it. Well, James Randi went in there with a little FM receiver and tuned into the radio station that his wife was reading prayer request cards that the people had filled out beforehand, and she's backstage reading them to a little earpiece that he has, and he posted. In fact, it showed up on the Johnny Carson show, right? The little feed, she's like, oh, it's the lady in the third row, her name is Bernice, and da-da-da-da, and on it went. Well, he had that big scandal for a while, but he's made a comeback. So I was clicking around the net one day, and I noticed that he was offering miracle water. Miracle water. You get it for free, right? And he sends it to you in a little envelope and what you're supposed to do. And there's a whole complicated list of instructions of what to do with this, right? You got to put it under your pillow for the night. Then in the next morning you get up and you drink it, okay? And then you send him a seed gift, which translates as send me money. And he guarantees, he promises, he prophesies. He says, this is a personal prophecy for you, that if you will return a seed gift of $19, that you will receive a check for somewhere between $1,900 and $19,000. That he has prophesied this for me. It was then followed up by, so far I have received 8 more requests for seed donations, My favorite one, and I'm just like going, because I love it because it starts off, this is Peter Popoff, your personal prophet. Inside this envelope is a smaller pink envelope. And I looked and the envelope was white. I'm like, dude, if you can't even get the color of the envelope right, we got a problem here. See, inside he had sent me another special gift. It was a special number. It was the number 8. It was cut out of sponge. He goes, put this in the water, and what you're going to see is it's going to increase in size, which is going to indicate that God is going to increase the gift you're going to send me. I'm like, really? Sponges indicate God's promises? I thought that was science. Never mind. But so far I have received 8 requests for money. I've received 12 emails and 2 phone calls. Each asking me, if you just plant a seed, God is going to bless you and give you all kinds of money. I think this person is maybe less than honest because God just doesn't work that way. I think he probably lacks a little bit of integrity, or if you go by my definition, I think he does have integrity. He's exactly the same on the outside as he is on the inside. Because when I kind of look at him, I go, I see a lot of dishonesty going on here, and it's reflected in what you're teaching. So we're going to take a look at the passage today. It's James chapter 5, verse 11. Ooh, good day to be here today, only one verse. So we know it's going to be short, yeah? All right. This is what James writes. Above all, my beloved, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or by any other oath. But let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. And there's a lot of discussion about this verse. Let's take a look at it a little bit. James takes this actually from the Sermon on the Mount. These are things that Jesus actually said. These are Jesus' words. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows which you've made to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is the footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. Now, people have interpreted this verse in a lot of different ways. Let's look at some of those interpretations. Some groups take this as a prohibition against taking any oath. Now, Greg, you spent some time with the Quakers, right? The Society of Friends. You spent some time with the Quakers. Quakers do not take any oaths. If they go into a courtroom, and they put their hand on the Bible, they will not swear. They can't say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. They will say, I affirm. Because they read this verse as you can't do any kind of oath whatsoever. That's why our former president, Richard Nixon, who was a Quaker, when he took the, quote, oath of office, did not say, I swear to uphold the Constitution. He said, I affirm. Because they take this as, can't make any kind of oath whatsoever. However, one of the things you notice in the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus says these words, yes, yes, and no, no, that repetition of that affirmative or that repetition of the negative was in the Jewish culture an actual oath. If you said yes, yes, that was an actual oath. You're like saying, I swear. So it's kind of a Jewish idiom that says this is an actual oath. So it's probably not that it's a prohibition against any oath. It's a prohibition against taking a false oath. Now, there are 2 possibilities that came up. Now, I've read a lot of commentaries about this and kind of looked at the issue. And I've heard a lot of sermons on this particular passage. And there are always kind of 2 possibilities that come up at this point. One is do not take the Lord's name in vain. Now, we've heard that commandment. And as I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. That was, you can't even say God, you can't say Lord. If you've met other Jewish people, they don't say the word God. They won't write the name of God because they're like, oh, now you're using it in vain. But what this actually means is don't swear using the Lord's name. Don't take an oath using the Lord's name. Don't say, I swear to God, or as the Lord is my witness, right? You don't want to do that. Because in Jewish culture, in the way that the Jewish people thought, that if you called a witness, and it was very common in the cultures around them, and in their own culture, that if you called a deity as a witness, and you broke that oath, then you called a curse upon yourself. And this would seem to flow with what Jesus said. You're going to call condemnation. If you say, well, God is my witness, and I'm swearing by his name, and then you break that oath, then naturally will flow certain condemnation. The other possibility is don't try to take advantage of other people. Now, I've heard several sermons, and I've read some commentaries on this, that it used to be sort of kind of like a little game you would play. You say, well, I swear by the temple, but that one wasn't a strong enough oath. You had to swear by the gold in the temple. Or if I swore by Jerusalem, that one really doesn't count. That's like crossing your fingers. I swear by Jerusalem, right? But really what you had to do is swear by the gates of Jerusalem. And so it was like a game so that you could sort of do an oath, but it wasn't really an oath, and thus take advantage of other people. So these are the two possibilities. Either don't use God as your witness, because it will bring condemnation on you if you break your oath, or don't try to take advantage of other people. Don't take the Lord's name. Swearing by a deity brings a curse if you break the oath. And if you call on God to be your witness to your oath, then if you break it, God will curse you. Now, I don't think this is very good theology myself. I think this is sort of pagan theology, right? Where if you don't keep God happy, he's going to zap you, he's going to hurt you, he's going to do something bad to you. The other one is swearing by heaven, earth, Jerusalem, or your head were just different ways to use God's name. And this is why Jesus condemns this, right? We talk about, well, don't swear by heaven. And Jesus says, because that's where God lives, and don't swear by earth because that's his footstool, and don't swear by Jerusalem because that's his holy city. Don't swear by your head because that's what he's created, and you can't change anything about it anyway. All of these ways, and if you know anything about Jewish culture, they avoided using God's name whenever they could. So oftentimes the word heaven became a substitute for the name of God. In fact, when they write in the Torah, when they get to the Lord's name, they just write something else and skip over it. So they always avoided using actually God's name. So all these were just different forms of God's name. Jewish avoidance of using God's name. They didn't like to use his name because they felt like speaking his name would have been disrespectful. Swearing falsely to gain trust and take advantage of other people. And I think this is the real issue. I think this is the real issue of integrity. That you swear, okay, I promise I'm going to be there, and then you know you don't have any intention on doing it, right? I promise I'll pay you next week, but you don't have any intention of doing it. I think this is the real issue of integrity that we see here. I think all of us probably have that person in our lives or that friend in our lives who's just like, no matter what they say, no matter what they say, you know it's not happening, right? You go, hey, will I see you next Tuesday? Oh, yeah, I'll be there. It's like, yeah, I don't think so. You're gonna, since I'm a teacher, okay, I can guarantee you, I know there are some students in my class, if they tell me that they absolutely, positively did their homework, they just forgot it, I know that's not true. Sure, you know. Whatever happened to the good old dog eating the homework? The dog swallowed my USB flash drive or something? I don't know. Getting out of commitments on technicalities. Well, I didn't actually say I would be there. You know, well, I was planning on being there, you know, but I guess you guys ended early. I didn't get there till after it all stopped, you know. Getting out of your commitments on technicalities. Well, I said this, but what I really meant was this. I think that shows a real lack of integrity. And when we look at Christianity, we have to remember that Christianity is centered around the idea of community. That we live together in community. Wisdom is within the community. It flows through all of us, and together we come together and we share with each other what God is teaching with us. That we have to have a trusting relationship within community. And the worst thing possible is if there's no trust in that community. If you're living in a community where there is no trust. We learn trust first in our families. That's our first community, is our families. And if there's no trust in our families, we have a hard time trusting the rest of the communities that we begin moving into, right? When we go off to start our own families and we get married, there needs to be trust. If there is no trust, there's going to be a lot of problems. We need to be people who aren't playing games, who aren't trying to get out of their commitments. People you can actually say yes or no, and you can believe them. So how are we supposed to live this all out? How are we supposed to be people of honesty and integrity? Well, be the kind of person who doesn't even need to take an oath. I was watching Law & Order the other day, because that's my favorite show. Gage knows that. He's heard me talk about it about 1 million times in my classes. He's like, oh my God, here we go, Law & Order again. I'm watching Law & Order the other day, because that's my favorite show, right? Because it has 20 seasons. So by the time you get to the 20th season, you've totally forgotten what happened in the first season. Okay? So I'm watching it, and here's this person, and he's in the interrogation room, and there's the detective. It's my favorite one, Lenny Briscoe. Anybody else watch Law & Order besides me? Am I the only person who watches? Oh, no, okay, there's some other. Lenny Briscoe, is he not the coolest, right? He's the best. Okay, so Lenny Briscoe's in there, and he's grilling the suspect, and the suspect, no, really, I swear to God, I swear on my mother's grave, I swear by all things that are sacred and holy. If you need to do that, you have an integrity problem. If I got to look at somebody and go, I swear by, this and that, and all these other kind of things, I've got an integrity problem. I should just be able to say, no, this is the way that it is. Now, I truly have integrity, they're going to believe me. You want to be that kind of person, a person who doesn't even need to take an oath to back up your word. There's an old phrase from long, long ago, my word is my bond. There are famous examples of people who could make a deal just on a handshake, and you trusted that person. You didn't need long contracts and legalese and all this kind of stuff. Nowadays, we can't even enter into marriage without a prenuptial, it seems like. And it's like, well, why do we need all this stuff? If you say, until death do us part, isn't that what you really mean? Are you reliable? Are you dependable? Are you honest? Do you have integrity? If you say, hey, I'm going to show up for such and such, then you need to be there. If you don't want to go, then don't say you're going to go. Now, being an introvert, because I am, right? I'm an actual introvert. I have a hard time in huge social situations and stuff like it. Wears me out. It just, I love you guys, but you wear me out, okay? When I get done with this, I'm going to have to go home and take a nap right after watching another episode of Law & Order. All right. Being an introvert, sometimes I just can't handle huge social situations. I have this shirt. It says, sorry I'm late, I didn't want to be here. Right? So sometimes I have to just say no to certain things because I'm just like, I've got too much on my plate. Just be honest about it. And I hope I don't hurt anybody's feelings about it. But I think what would be worse if I go around and lie to people, oh yeah, I'll be there, and then not show up. So I have to, set appropriate boundaries, be that kind of person who's got the honesty about that, about, hey, I have limits, I have boundaries. And then people will understand, and people will respect you, and people can then trust you. Be reliable, be dependable, be honest, have integrity. Or you can look at it the other way. Don't take advantage of others. Don't be entering into contracts, and don't be making promises just to take advantage of somebody else. Don't be promising a whole bunch of stuff that you know is never going to happen. Oh, anybody know who that is? Apparently, after writing to Peter Popoff and getting my miracle spring water, he sold my name to Marilyn Hickey. Now, I don't know much about her, but she so far has made, I've received 6 letters from her and 2 emails. She hasn't called me personally yet. But Marilyn would also like me to know that if I will only send her a seed, which means money, that God is going to open the floodgates of heaven and pour out all kinds of money on me. I somehow do not believe her. I somehow just don't believe her. I don't think she has the integrity that she needs. Here at Open Door, we don't talk a lot about money. It's not our big thing. By the way, thank you for everybody who does contribute. We appreciate you very much. Okay? But we made a decision quite a number of years back that we honestly believe that God was calling us to reach out to the community and help them. That's where we thought the money should go. And so most of the people who minister here do it on a volunteer basis. We just say, hey, you know what? We would rather the money go out into the community. I think that shows integrity. We're saying, you know what? Rather than stopping the money for paying me for services, let's send it out in the community because we believe that's what God is telling us. We believe God says, spend the money in the community. That's what we do. When our words and actions align, I think that's integrity. And so I thank all the volunteers who do the work here. That's so amazing of all of you. We're not going to look at you and lie to you and say, well, if you give to us, God's going to, increase it tenfold, 100-fold. I'm not going to be sending you sponges in the mail. I won't be sending you a letter with little, miracle water in it. We don't operate that way. Okay? I think we need to kind of be honest about things. That if you come here and you support here, the majority of the money is going to go right back out into the community where we think it belongs, helping those who need help. Somebody's got to pay for those coloring books for those little old ladies. I love those little old ladies. And we said, we color with them, right? There's where your money goes. We're buying coloring books and crayons. We have the best time with those little old ladies. But I think when you look at people like this who are trying to take advantage of you and they make huge promises, that's a problem. And Jesus said it in the Sermon on the Mount, and James says it in his book of James. Be honest, have integrity. Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything more than that, it's going to cause problems for you. We're going to move into our time of prayer. What we have up here on the slides are some slides. You can meditate on the slides. There's some scriptures on them. There's going to be some music praying. The prayer requests for the congregation are inside the bulletin. If you'd like to pray for those, you can look and see what the prayer requests are. Or if you need prayer, there's somebody over on the side, over where Stanton's at, that will lay hands on you and pray for you if you need that. So let's spend some time in prayer.